I quit my day job almost 2 years ago to pursue being a full-time independent board game designer. And I wanted to share with you how it's going so far. And right off the bat, I want to say that trying to make a living as an independent game designer is very, very difficult. And I'm not encouraging anyone to quit their day job, especially if money is tight. But I do want to share my experience so far and show that while it is very difficult, it is possible. So before I quit my day job back in 2023, I'd saved up enough money to support myself for about 6 months. And I also have my investment portfolio that I have been contributing to for many years. But I did not want to withdraw any funds from my investments, and I'll speak more about my investment plan later on in the video. Now, I had a feeling I would likely need to get another day job before the end of those 6 months, but it's been almost 2 years and I haven't had to get another day job yet. So here are the key things that I have done or that have happened that have allowed me to continue to design games full-time for almost 2 years. Number 1, I sublet my apartment for part of each year. So the first year I attempted to pursue designing games full-time, I rented out my apartment for 4.5 months and then lived with my parents and also lived out of my car. And that's why sometimes you'll see my YouTube videos recorded in my car. This year, I'm subletting my apartment for 6 months, which will cut my rent, which is my biggest expense by far, in half for the year. Now, this is not, the easiest thing to do. I love my apartment, I love my neighborhood, and I love seeing my friends and family in Vancouver on a regular basis. But designing games full-time is a dream that I'm willing to make these kinds of decisions for. Now, to be clear, what I do when I sublet my apartment each year is no sacrifice. Like last year when I went on a road trip down to California and saved money by eating almost every meal at Six Flags Magic Mountain using their dining plan and riding roller coasters in between editing videos and continuing to design games remotely. And then staying with my parents in my hometown, which is where I am right now. And I'm so very lucky and grateful to even have the option to stay with my parents. I get along with my parents. I have a super fun time with them. And it's actually really special to be able to spend this time with them. And I also get to see some of my best friends who live here as well. Now this year, I'm leaving next week to go to Vietnam for 2 months, so some of my videos will be from hotel rooms and that will be why. I chose Vietnam because I love Vietnamese food, but also because it is a very affordable place to visit. Accommodations and food will be much cheaper than in Canada, the US, and Europe, and so I purposely chose a place that I want to explore, but also where I can save money while I continue to be a full-time game designer. And while getting to Vietnam from Canada is actually quite expensive, I was able to use credit card points to save almost half of the cost of the flight. And just a quick aside about credit card points, you'll get a lot more points from new credit cards that you open due to their welcome bonuses. Taking advantage of credit cards is its own game. And if you want to learn more, I would recommend for those in the US to check out the podcast All the Hacks, and those in Canada to check out the Canadian in a T-shirt and Prince of Travel YouTube channels. I don't know much about credit card points outside of the US and Canada, but it could potentially save you quite a bit of money. So wherever you are in the world, I would recommend looking into it to see if it's something you can take advantage of. Now, before I head back to Vancouver when I get my apartment back this summer, I might head out on another road trip and live out of my car again, but I haven't decided quite yet. But the goal really is to save as much money as possible while still having fun and continuing to make games and YouTube videos full-time. Now, the second major thing that happened that allowed me to continue to design games full-time is I started to receive more royalty checks since I now have more published games. Getting paid for the games you make is a long process. Yes, you should receive a cash advance when you sign a game with a publisher, but it will then be 1 or 2 or more years before the game actually hits the market. You then have to wait for the publisher to send the royalty report to you, which is usually every quarter or every 6 months. And you have to recoup that advance that you already got. You will only get a royalty check if the sales of your game go beyond the amount you were already paid with your advance. But in 2024, I started to receive more royalty checks because I had more games on the market, and so I was able to cover some of my expenses. Now, just to be clear, while there is some money coming in from my royalties, which I'm very, very grateful for, it is still not enough to cover all of my expenses without subletting my apartment for half the year. Then there was a curveball in 2024 that really helped me continue to design games full-time. A PR firm reached out to me to design a game for one of their clients. In September 2024, I got an unexpected email from a PR firm asking if I would be interested in creating a game for one of their clients as a promo product. I hadn't had a request like this before, so I posted in the Board Game Besties Facebook group to see how much other designers would charge for something like this. And I got some great advice like this from designer Ellie Dix, who said, "Don't forget that you're not just charging for your time, you're charging for a specialist service. It doesn't matter if it doesn't take long to do, you're an expert and you should be paid as such." If I hadn't had the advice from other besties, I most likely would have undercharged for my services, so I'm very grateful for their insight and support. I ended up signing a contract with the PR firm at the end of October and then spent a month and a half speed running the entire board game design process from ideation to completion. Normally, it takes quite a while to come up with a viable idea, which is then prototyped and playtested for months before it's ready to pitch to publishers, which then also can take quite a while. If the game does get picked up by a publisher, they will then take months to finalize the art, graphic design, and proofread and edit the rules. This project condensed that full cycle down into a month and a half. That is the main reason I didn't post any videos in the month of November. I was pretty busy. So in early November, I was busy coming up with 10 ideas for the PR firm based on the requirements from their client. I then presented these concepts to them and they chose their 4 favorite, which I then built digital prototypes for in Tabletopia. I then playtested these games with them on Tabletopia and they picked their favorite. I made a physical prototype for that one and playtested it extensively, making changes based on their feedback, going back and forth a few times until the game was finalized in December 2024. They are now overseeing the printing of the game and my part is done. So that was a great design challenge and very unexpected and was something that happened last year that helped me continue to design games full time. Now here are some other adjustments I have made to reduce my expenses while I pursue this dream. I stopped drinking alcohol. Not only do I save money because I eliminated that expense, but I'm also never hungover. So I hardly ever order food delivery now, which is something I did often when I was hungover. I also make most meals at home. I still very much enjoy going out for meals, but I definitely make the majority of my meals at home, and it's amazing how much money this can save you. And I use credit card points to my advantage. As mentioned before, I am learning more and more about the game of credit card points, and this has saved me quite a bit of money, especially on travel. And one new thing that I just signed up for today is a service called cheques in Canada, where they charge your credit card for your rent and then they pay your rent to your landlord as an electronic funds transfer. So on your landlord's end, nothing changes, but for you, you can get a ton of points by paying your rent with your credit card. Now they do charge a 1.75% fee for this service, but if you use a credit card that gives you a higher percentage cash back, you can actually make money off of your rent. So I signed up for the Scotiabank Momentum Visa Infinite card that gives you 4% cash back on recurring payments. So I will earn 2.25% cash back on my rent. I learned about all of this from the Canadian in a T-shirt YouTube channel, which I will link below. I don't know if there's an equivalent service in the US or other countries, but if anyone knows, please share in the comments below. Now, on the flip side, in addition to my royalties and commission work for that PR firm, I've also been able to increase my earnings from this YouTube channel, mostly due to my viral Meeple Inc. video, as well as my one-on-one consulting services. I also want to give a huge shout out to my YouTube members who have been a huge reason I've been able to pursue this dream. Not only are they helping me financially, but they're also so supportive, and I'm very grateful for this community. We keep each other accountable, we playtest each other's games, and we also have fun just playing games together as well. If you want to join us, you're welcome to become a member by clicking the join button below. Now, I'm not a financial advisor, and this is not financial advice. I'm just sharing what I have done that has been working for me. Now, with all of this said, the path to victory that I am pursuing to be able to continue to design games full-time in a sustainable way is actually to become financially independent. It is highly unlikely that I'll be able to support myself indefinitely solely from royalties, commissioned work, and YouTube videos. So my plan is just to be able to make enough to cover my basic expenses while keeping them as low as possible while my investments continue to grow until they eventually get to a point where I can live off their returns. Now, what number do my investments need to get to in order for me to achieve financial independence? Well, the general rule, supported by the Trinity study and popularized by the blogger Mr. Money Mustache, is to take your annual expenses and multiply them by 25. That is the number you will likely need to have invested in order to safely withdraw 4% every year without ever running out of money. Now, some people say you don't need to be so conservative with that number and could probably declare financial independence much sooner, since you will most likely continue to bring in some sort of income. So personally, I have achieved what's called coast financial independence, which means that as long as I don't withdraw funds and allow my investments to continue to grow, I should achieve financial independence in 10 to 15 years. Now, if I want to speed that up, I will want to contribute to my investments whenever possible. So ideally, I would like to not only cover my basic expenses from my game design work, I would really love to be able to add to my investments so I can achieve full financial independence. At that point, there would be no stress about having to make any money from the games that I create, and I can just make things for the pure joy of it. So that is my plan, and that's how things are going almost 2 years after quitting my day job and taking the leap to design games and make YouTube videos full time. I hope you enjoyed this video, and I would love to know if you also have an interest in being a full-time independent game designer, and if you do, what is your game plan? Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. From Vietnam,